am a stay-at-home mom. I was a teacher before staying home, and I have three littles, one on the way. And I have very little time because of that. And we'll be talking a lot about what I've created. And it wasn't something I created overnight, it was something that took 8 months of nap times to create.
Wow.
So, only about an hour and a half every day during nap time, and I would run upstairs and work on it. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Hi, everyone. I'm here with Amanda Stores. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to dive into your world today. Before we get started, can you tell everybody just a little bit more about who you are, where you live, and what you do?
I am a stay-at-home mom. I was a teacher before staying home, and I have three littles, one on the way. And I have very little time because of that. And we'll be talking a lot about what I've created. And it wasn't something I created overnight, it was something that took 8 months of nap times to create. So,
Wow.
only about an hour and a half every day during nap time, and I would run upstairs and work on it. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Oh my goodness, I know that feeling. And like, you never know if you're going to get 30 minutes or 2.5 for 3 hours. Like, you just don't know.
It's a variation every day, and you'll be right in the middle of it. And then one of them will wake up. You're like, okay, I guess it's a 30-minute day today.
In a day. Okay, Amanda, take me back to 2020 is when you took the immersion course. Tell me what was going on in your world. Why were you interested in learning illustration and pattern design? Did you have any experience? Did you know what it was? Tell me all about that time in your life.
I had a 6 month old at the time. So it was my first daughter. And I had been creating artwork and individual pieces for people that requested them. And when you don't have children, you have this blessed present of time. And I didn't realize, of course, when you start having these blessings, like you just don't have your time. Your time is not your own anymore. And I told my husband in 2019, I said, I don't want anything for Christmas, but I want this course called Immersion. And he looked at me funny. He's, You want a course for Christmas? I said, yes, that's what I want. I don't want anything else. And he said, okay. I
Mm.
said, I realized that I needed to work smarter, not harder, now that I have children. And individual pieces was not a good use of my time anymore. I really wanted something that I could create really well from the beginning and then have it replicated over and over again. So that drew me to the course. And I feel like 2020 was an amazing year because we were all shut into our houses anyway.
Yeah.
And I was able to really focus on immersion and pour myself into it. And no, I had absolutely no concept of Adobe at all. I thought that was what designers used, logos, all those design centered things. And Canva was where I was at the time.
Yeah.
So when you had the very first part was, okay, this is what Adobe Illustrator icon looks like. Okay, I was in the right place.
Yep, I love it. I love it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and spill the beans because I have your finished product here that we want to talk about. This is called Cover to Cover, and it is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read and special. It is about journaling and reading the Bible in a year. And Amanda, it's so beautiful, so well thought out. Everything is just designed so incredibly well. Can you unpack this for me? Is this something that you had in your heart at the time that you were taking immersion? Or if not, what did you have in mind at the time? And then we'll get to the into the depths of this particular project.
At the time, I just knew that I loved doing artwork. And I knew that it was something I always loved doing from when I was a little girl. And like I said, I was focusing on creating something that I wouldn't have to replicate. So I went through immersion and I actually made a collection. I got the fabric printed and made my daughter a beautiful dress, and my youngest daughter can almost wear it now.
Oh,
And I just never felt like even after doing that, I said, I feel like I need to wait and see what my calling is, because it's really easy that when you find something that someone else loves, that you want to make it, you just want to follow their path. Like it would
Mm.
be really easy for me to follow your path. And there was a period of time I focused more on the business side of things. And I was just telling someone the other day that just because you feel comfortable with or you're good at something does not mean that has to be your calling. You have to really wait for what God wants with your life. And that's truly what I believe. And no, I did not have this in mind for a product, but at the time during 2020, coincidentally, I had this goal of reading the entire Bible. And most people who look at the Bible are like, wow, that's really big. There's no way I can read that. And I had a New Year's resolution to do it. And I got past year one and I was halfway through. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is going to take me a lot longer. It took 2 years to do. And I actually finished around the same time that immersion finished.
Mm.
And it was a beautiful time frame. And so I attempted Adobe InDesign at the time with some of the skills that you taught. And I look back at that and I was like, wow, that's scary. Looking back at your very first works, I'll call it my first work. I created a Bible journal at the time, and I had no ideas about design or anything, but I had to wait for me to just step back and ask God what He wanted with my life as a calling.
Mm. So tell me when this came to you, when this idea came to you, and were you all in, or did you overcome some? This is a really big undertaking. So talk to me about when the idea came and when you decided to really dive into it, and then what the process was like. You said it took 8 months. Tell me all about it.
In 2023, I made my plans as we always do in December of the previous year. And we're like, okay, have my whole year planned out. And I can't describe it other than I just started praying and really just stepping back from everything, because I knew that the direction I wasn't going wasn't working. And it's really easy to go in your own path, and it takes a lot more faith to step back for a minute. And I just felt the Lord just calling me to create a physical version of what I started years ago. And I
Mm.
was like, Lord, I have no idea where to start. I opened up Adobe Illustrator again. And of course, I had a year of not even touching it go by. And I was like, you know what? I have this really amazing course I can go back and look at again and refresh my memory on the lessons. And so that's what I did. And I started creating a logo because you gave me all the skills of how to create a logo for it. And I started creating the cover for it. And I was able to create it in my iPad, transfer it into Adobe Illustrator, and then vectorize it and everything. This company said yes, and I was thrilled about it. So they sent me all the templates, and they sent me a box template too, because I'm like, you can make a box too, because I'm gonna have to ship all of them for my upstairs room. Okay. I started just going one step at a time. I was able to create the inside pages, everything I needed. But I remember before I sent the artwork, the email communication, I can't see the person on the other email. Let's be honest here, but the exact words were, you might want to check with your designer on this, because I was probably asking dumb questions, or at least they probably seem dumb to someone who does this every day for a living. And I was like, okay, I'll check with my designer about that.
Get back to you.
Which was me. I just went through and started with just one step at a time. I worked on a front cover, back cover, tabs. I worked with font and the logo. And then they said stickers, and I was all down for it. So stickers to coordinate with it. But it was an 8-month process. And
Mm.
that wasn't just the beginning of the hurdle, because I still had to pre-sell them.
Yeah.
So without a huge audience, I looked at my husband, I'm like, this is a lot of faith to sign a contract for a cost to print when you don't even have a huge audience and you don't know if anyone's going to want it in the first place.
Yeah. So how many did you order?
I ordered 1,000
And
of
how much
them.
did you pre-sell?
So I pre-sold 300, which was the cost to print.
Oh my goodness, Amanda.
So what's crazy is within 3 days, 40% of the cost to print was covered with the
Wow.
pre-orders.
When did it come out?
So it actually was shipped to me on December 29th. So the semi truck rolled up with 3 6x6
Yep.
huge. I'm like, where are we going to put this? And so we literally had to take the door off one of our closets just to put all of them in there. But yeah, they were all shipped on the 29th. So I had friends and family stepping in to help me package all of them and ship them out within 3 days. So it was just wonderful.
I want to talk about success for you, not only business and financial success from this, but also what does success mean to you? And what has it really meant to you and your family to be able to bring something like this to life?
I think in today's world, people define success very much on numbers and finances. And if you look back at this entire process, I really had to evaluate, like, why am I doing this? Of course, it would be great to bring in an income for my family. My goal would be to make enough to stay home permanently. And that's my goal ultimately, to do that. But most of all, my goal was, how can I get people to read the Bible again? Success came not from the number of journals that I've sold, but when I had the replies of why they bought the journal. Just seeing people realize that this is not a Bible in a year. This is like over the course of a lifetime. And once they complete it, they can pass it down to their own children as an heirloom of when they read their Bible, and they can go back and say, oh, wow, I'm really struggling with whatever it is. And let's see what mom said about it in her own words.
That's legacy work. That's
Yes.
incredible, Amanda. You'll really never understand the impact that this has made just by following that lead and the calling. And it's incredible.
Thank you.
Two questions. What would you tell someone, like, what would you tell yourself a few years ago when you had this and you're like, no, I couldn't possibly, like, really? What would you tell the person who's feeling that way?
I think that I think a lot of times, especially with immersion, people look at a lot of different factors with it. I think when I was thinking about immersion, it was, what's the success rate of immersion? But I'm a prime example of someone who took the course and the success came later on.
Mm.
But you laid this foundation for me that I would not have been able to create what I did. And I also think that people look at the price tag and they're like, "Oh man, I absolutely can't afford this." But then you look at what could happen if a company licensed you. What could happen in my case if a publisher picked up the journal and said, "I'm ready to put this in every bookstore, every Christian bookstore, whatever opportunity, what that number of taking the course just looks really minor in the grand scheme of what it could be."
Yeah.
But you almost, it is a lot of faith because you have to do the work. If I had sat and never taken an immersion or just skipped over lessons the entire time, I don't think I would have realized how impactful the course was and could be in the future.
I'm so happy to have seen everything that you've done over the years, Amanda. You're just such a delight and such a joy, and so grateful that you did this work. It's beautiful. Anything that you would like to share before we wrap up?
I think it just comes down to really looking and evaluating not the right now plan, but what's the could be, what's your future, what it could be. And if I had stopped and just said, I took the course, I didn't get licensed or whatever, that would have been the end of the story. But that
Mhm.
wasn't the end of my story. And I feel like you just have to continue and at some periods of time step back and really evaluate, what do you want to be known for at the end of your life? For me, it was, I want to be known for what I did to bring God glory. But that may not be your reason, but it can be any reason. But that's what your passion needs to be towards. And you have to take those steps to create that passion and make it a reality.
Mhm. That's the perfect way to end and wrap that up. Thank you, Amanda, so much.
Thank you.